Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome, Brainiacs, to a very special edition of the Leather Brains podcast. My name is Scotty Del Rey, and I am your de facto host today because Hunter Amoruso Slapdog is missing in action. He is MIA, which means that instead of getting his beautiful voice on your airwaves or through your headphones, you get my voice, which sounds a little bit like if someone has a stoma and they sucked on a helium balloon. But it's the only voice I got, so you're going to have to deal with it.
You're not Ron. You're not
Welcome
Ron.
to the roast of Scotty. We're not going to talk about football today. We're just going to roast Scotty.
We're going to talk about stomas. This is a PSA for smoking. Don't smoke. But I am not alone, of course. I am with the boys. I'm with my co-hosts and very good friends, Alan Casanova Castro. I am with Matthew Cahan, and I am with Mr. Yeti, and we've got the NFL draft coming up this week in just a couple of days. Boys, we made it. We're here. The NFL draft has come, and we're going to talk a lot about it. But first, we're just going to touch on some tidbits of news. We'll get right into it here. First things first, Zach Wilson to the Broncos. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a second, but I just wanted to touch on it so we didn't forget about it. But Zach Wilson to the Broncos, us Chiefs fans and Raiders fans in the room, we might have something to be excited about here with this. Zach Wilson joining our conference or joining our division. That's pretty sweet.
Hide your moms.
Point of contention here, Matt Ryan is retired at the age of 38. There is a lot of debate going on right now as to whether or not he should be a Hall of Fame quarterback. So let's discuss. Just so you guys know, he ranks 7th in NFL history for passing yards, 9th in career touchdown passes. He won the league MVP in 2016 when he took the Falcons to their only their second Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. So I'll open the floor up. Matt Ryan, should he be a Hall of Famer?
This is
nobody rushed to the podium.
Right. It's interesting because, Matt Ryan, he had a long career. He had a 15-year career, and he was Mr. Consistent throughout his whole career, I feel like. He does have an MVP to back his, Hall of Fame profile, but that's kind of like saying, in my opinion, Cam Newton should go in the Hall of Fame because he has an MVP-type season. To me, when I think about Hall of Fame quarterbacks, you need to have a ring to your name.
Yes or no? Yes or no, Yeti?
To Cam Newton be in the Hall of Fame?
No, to Matt Ryan. Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go no. Also, he's had a great career. You can't really deny that. He's thrown for a lot of yards and he's played a lot of years, which does matter. But he doesn't have the ring. He is most known for choking away a ring. And I'd say if that is your thing that you are most known for, and you don't have anything that can re-encapsulate your career, I think it would be very tough, at least from a fan perspective, to find ways to put him in the Hall of Fame, especially if you're trying to make it. I forgot if it was baseball or basketball, but I think the Baseball Hall of Fame is pretty easy to get into. The NFL should keep it, very, make it tough to get into. It can't just be an easy thing where a player who just played for a long time can get in.
I agree. I think this goes in. I have a big qualm with Hall of Fames in general. And everybody's like, oh, he should be a Hall of Famer because he was really good for a while. It's the Hall of Fame should be more elite than it is. I think a lot of the people that get in the Hall of Fame probably shouldn't be in anyways, but that's just me. I'm an old curmudgeon about the Hall of Fame. It should be your game transcends eras. People say your name, look at what you did, and wow, the NFL is not the same, and it changed because of X player. And
you're telling me you don't feel that way about Matt Ryan?
No, you were reading off his stats, and I already forgot who Matt Ryan was. I was already over it. I was I don't care. He was really good, but we've had a lot of really good quarterbacks that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Doesn't mean they're not really good quarterbacks, or they shouldn't be in the team's ring of honor, or maybe they hang up, something in the stadium for him to recognize his efforts. But the NFL Hall of Fame, you cannot put Matt Ryan's name up there with any of the great quarterbacks. And honestly, I think this is a good time. Maybe they should go in and audit who's in there, and I will be the first one to run through the door, and we should start kicking people out. Like, hey, you know what? We put you in, but like it was a mistake. We're going to kick you out now. This is super elite club. Because I think a lot of people that get into Hall of Fames get in because of like the team they played for example.
Could that argument be used in the reverse though? Like, Matt Ryan doesn't have any rings, but is it just because of the teams that he played for, or is it because of Matt Ryan? Is his play indicative of a Hall of Fame player?
No. What did Matt Ryan do on the field that you were like, wow, this just changed the game besides having a cool nickname for a spell?
Well,
like,
Kahan said that what he's known for is choking away a Super Bowl, and I think what he's known for is missing out on the Kyle Pitts era, which I'm never going to forgive him for. That really pisses me off that he had to screw us over like that. Okay, we'll move on here to the last bit of news. I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk shit on my favorite subject, to talk shit on Dan Campbell, because Slapdog's not here to get offended by it like a pansy. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there are headlines coming out saying that Dan Campbell is a big reason why the Lions brought back their black uniforms. Those god-awful black and powder blue just do not go together. They are clashing colors. They look terrible. And Dan Campbell, I guess, is a big reason why, because when he was playing, they had those black jerseys and he was all in love with them. I just think this is another example of a terrible decision made by Dan Campbell. I have adopted the mantra that if Dan Campbell was an engineer, he would put an ejector seat on a helicopter, because he just can't do anything right. Can't make any good decisions. Terrible jerseys. Not only are they ugly, but the last time they wore them, they went 0-16 in 2008. So bad juju all around.
Ooh. I'm probably more surprised that Dan Campbell didn't find a way to get Copenhagen to sponsor their jersey, at least. Like, weave it into something he really wants, like even like the jerseys have like a little Copenhagen pouch, like right here. You could like stuff something in there. That's probably
pouches built into the jerseys.
Yeah, that's where he should have gone instead of just the black. He should have done something sweet.
Well, the difference is that would be an awesome decision, and he's not capable of making awesome decisions. So, all right. That concludes Dan Campbell talk. Let's actually talk about why we're here, the NFL draft. Oh, what did Hunter say? I missed that.
He said, and I quote, "Not a pansy. Number one. Number two, your opinions are trash regarding Dan Campbell."
I think I have an episode. I have an episode with a quote from Hunter talking about how I was right about Dan Campbell. I might have to pull some clips from that. Send it to him.
Bring out the receipts, Scotty.
He's got a weird love affair with Dan.
He does. He does. Okay, so let's talk about the NFL draft. We're going to start with some draft rumors. We've all seen these coming around. There are about 1 billion of them. I settled on just a handful for us to discuss. The first being, are the Patriots going to stay with their pick, or are they going to trade down? What's the best move? This franchise is kind of a question mark to me. There's obviously new coaching staff. Everything's new there. Doesn't seem like they have any players. I don't know if they're going into let's be good over the next 8 years kind of model, or if they're like, okay, let's try and move down in the draft, or let's try and stay where we're at in the draft and get some generational player and try and make a waves right now. I don't know what their mindset is. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can take the front on this. I think the Patriots would like to move down, but I think that they're not. I mean, it came out today in the news. They're not getting the packages that they're looking for to move down from 3. I'm guessing with a team that's between 8th to 15th or 16th overall, somewhere in that range. Maybe it's the Minnesota Vikings, maybe it's the Denver Broncos, but I do think that they want to move down because their team is nowhere near a competitive team. And at 3rd overall, you're looking right now at, one of the 3 quarterbacks that isn't Caleb Williams. That's most likely going to be the pick there. So if they stay, they're going to take a quarterback. I think Drake May could be the guy. I also would be interested to see if a team like the Giants wants to move up. I've seen a little bit of, rumors with the Giants moving up to 3, taking JJ McCarthy, and the Patriots move down to 6, and they end up getting a guy like Malik Neighbors. So I think that they should move down, and they want to move down because they're fine with sticking with Brissett. And I think if you throw a rookie quarterback into that situation, it's going to be a Mac Jones 2.0, where you put a solid pocket passer with negative weapons, and then he ends up, not being good. So I think they're going to try to build the foundation first and figure out the quarterback in the future.
Yeah, I was going with what you were going to say, as far as if I think they have a quarterback that they're waiting for, and they want to see if the Commanders fuck it up. And I think if the Commanders fuck up their pick and take the one take the opposite, which I think they're sitting on Drake May, and I think the Patriots are going to wait and see, and I think maybe they do have a package or two ready to go if they need to trade out of that spot. So I think if they do, it's going to happen immediately following the Commanders pick, or if they catch wind of what the Commanders are going to do, because I think they, based on the articles that I've read and some of the scouts that are surrounding the Patriots themselves, it sounds like Drake May is who they want. Like they want him, and if the Commanders end up taking him, then they're going to trade out. But if they don't take him, I think you see Drake May go. So I think it's going to be a literally 11th hour decision for them on that pick, depending on what the Commanders do.
Some draft day stuff. I like it.
Yeah, Alan. Let's say Denver calls Patriots. Let's play a game. You're the Patriots GM here, and John Elway, he gives you a call.
First, I'm saying fuck you, John Elway, and then go ahead.
Okay, but John Elway calls you and he says, "Hey, I'll give you my first round pick this year, next year, and I'll give you Patrick Surtain for the 3rd overall pick." Are you willing to take that?
If I'm the Patriots?
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm out. Yep, I'll get out of there, because I don't. As much as I think they want Drake May, I think they like Matt. I'm gonna call you MK. I'm gonna call you MK. MK, saying that they have a lot of holes. They really do, and I think the right package will trade them out. I think that's the problem right now, like you said, is there's nothing. I think a lot of the teams that do want to trade up maybe not have quite all the assets the teams are looking for, and they can't leverage them in the way they need to. So I would say yes. First, I'd say fuck you, John Elway, and then I would say yes, let's go ahead and do that, because that gives the secondary. Patriots, like, you need to build defense first. I would like to build, and then it gives them the opportunity to build on the lines, which I think that's where they need to start. They need to start beefing up their lines again.
I think
Alan, you're about to start a major meme on TikTok of everyone going okay with Mr. Mackey here. That's all. You got me laughing there, so that was a good one, right there. I just had to give you your flowers.
Appreciate it.
Sorry,
John
Eddie,
Elway,
go
okay.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, if the Broncos do move up at all in the first round, I think the position to watch is a 3 spot, because they don't have enough to match the Vikings' potential move up to the 4 spot, and there's no way that the Chargers are going to be willing to deal with the Broncos with the 5th overall pick. So if the Broncos have a guy in mind and they want to trade up to top 5, top 10 pick, in my mind, it's with New England.
Well, that's a great segue. Let's talk about the Broncos. Obviously, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, they just acquired everyone's favorite quarterback in Zach Wilson. So the question is, leading up into the NFL draft, we're talking about, okay, the Broncos want to move up. They want to get a quarterback. They're paying a quarterback to not play on their team, so they need to get a quarterback who will play on their team. But after getting Zach Wilson, the question is, okay, Zach Wilson, obviously, everybody knows what Zach Wilson is at this point. Is he insurance? Is he an indication that the Broncos are struggling to find a trade package that works for them and they just need somebody there to play the position? And what do you guys think about this trade for Zach Wilson? Because I'm of the mind that even though in a lot of ways it's laughable, I look at Zach Wilson and I say, well, this is actually kind of a good situation for you, because the expectations are through the floor. I mean, there's no one on earth that would expect Zach Wilson as a starting quarterback for the Broncos in 2024 to have any success whatsoever. So if he fails, it's because the Broncos suck. If he's better than people expect him to be, then maybe he starts chipping away at that narrative. And if he ends up riding the bench, which I think is probably the most likely scenario, then he gets a little bit of time to develop, which he desperately needs, and he has yet to have that in the NFL. So I think for Zach Wilson, pretty good move. But the question again is, what are the Broncos thinking here? Is this an insurance move, or are they in a bind?
From what I've seen from a lot of Broncos media and different reports, is that Wilson is almost a bridge quarterback without being good, in a sense. Typically you see bridge quarterbacks, someone like Matt Ryan for the Colts, and like Phillip Rivers, guys when they're old, become starters for 1 year. I think Wilson is in a way a bridge quarterback, and a sense that the Broncos are prepared to possibly take Penix or Bo Nix at 12th overall, which I know we're going to be discussing later in the episode, but would be an absolutely crazy pick at this point, in the draft of what we're talking about, considering, obviously those guys coming out of 5th years, in the Pac-12. But I do think they're going to try to trade up for JJ McCarthy, is what, the rumors have been saying, and giving up 12th overall, their first next year, and Pat Surtain. I'm not in love with that move. I think that that's just going to put them in a huge bind. And if that quarterback doesn't hit, they will be the worst team in the league for most likely for the next 4 years at least. So if I had to guess, I actually do think they're going to stay at 12, and they could be, looking at one of those two quarterbacks that I had mentioned beforehand.
I would think if you're the Broncos, why did Sean Payton go there? Why did you bring him in? Why did he say yes? Like they had Russ. Like I think they thought that was going to be a Band-Aid fix. So I'm like really confused directionally where this team is going and what their plans are. Because I don't think Sean Payton's in it for the long haul, ? Maybe. I don't think so. Like my opinion is he wants to win now, which was part of the appeal of maybe getting Russ. But I don't know what this does for Sean Payton. It was a low risk move overall for the Broncos because they didn't give up really anything, and they're not going to have to pay him anything. So it was just overall like it's no skin off their back to get him. And he's young. I think Zach Wilson's going to be about the same age that Penix is, and somebody turns about the same age too. So there's like an age thing there that certainly works. But I don't get it. I don't know what the Broncos are doing directionally. I think fine, he's like a body to fill. The only thing I have for Zach Wilson is sometimes when I go on my phone and I go to a random website I shouldn't be on, it tells me there's hot MILFs in my area. That's the only thing that I might want to pass along to him of like, hey, check out this site because there might be some hot MILFs in your area. I'll have to figure out which site that was, but it was useful.
Yeah, you send it to me. I'll send it to him. I'll
Okay.
take care of that for you.
Hold on.
Yeti, what do you think?
Regarding Zach Wilson, this is no more than like a QB3 type of move. You look at their depth chart right now, and they have Jarrett Stidham as a QB1, Zach Wilson as QB2, with DiNucci being the QB3. So, obviously,
is this the worst quarterback room in the league right now?
It's up there. I think it's certainly up there,
Ben
man.
DiNucci.
Hey, what about the Bears right now?
What about the Raiders?
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
at least they got Aiden
Yeah,
O'Connell, right?
yeah. Hey,
Shit.
let's calm it down over here.
We're getting really angry.
But no, I do think the Broncos are going to try to trade up, and they have even said that they're willing to mortgage the future to get their quarterback on this roster. So whatever that looks like, I think they would have to include Surtain just because they don't have enough picks. They don't have enough attractive pieces on this team to really entice anybody in the top 10 in my mind. So I think they're willing to do whatever it takes.
Didn't Sean Payton take out a couple mortgages when he was with the Saints, and that left them in the situation that they find themselves in right now? And now he's just stepping into Denver and just getting rid of their quarterback, still paying him $30 million, mortgaging their future, as Yeti says. Is he just like he's just out here fleecing everybody? It seems like wherever Sean Payton goes, just nothing but it's a tornado of destruction that follows.
He truly believes the cap doesn't exist.
Yeah. Nobody's told him about the cap yet. He's still trying to discover what that means.
It's like, wait, have you seen what the Chiefs have done lately? They're just like restructuring numbers. Why can't we do that? That's fine.
I think as a coach, I think just the one magical year he had with the Saints, it all kind of fell into place. Drew Brees was playing well. He had the right, but like I don't know at what point you just move on from this dude. Tell him just go back to TV. Because I don't know. It's just been a steady decline of like his prowess as a coach. I just don't see it anymore. So, but it's okay. I actually take that back. He's doing really good for Denver. They should keep him around, see where this goes. I think he's turning a corner.
Well, it's funny. Sean Payton was known as a quarterback coach. He's a quarterback guru. Just look at what he did with Drew Brees, and he's so elite. So I'm curious to see who his top quarterback in the draft is going to be. Like if he's like, oh yeah, Bo Nix, yep, that is our guy, and we're going to go in the top 5, and we're going to go get Bo Nix, then I'm really going to have a lot of question marks regarding Sean Payton's legacy as a quarterback whisperer, quarterback guru coach.
Well, a lot of rumors are saying that JJ McCarthy might be the one, and this rumor here says that JJ McCarthy is going to be a top 3 pick. What do you guys think about that? It seems a little silly.
I mean, there is a lot of smoke from what I've seen with McCarthy possibly going 2. And this is what I'll say about JJ, because I've been very big, like back and forth on JJ because I consider him one of the most like volatile pieces, that you can select. He does have the best intangibles out of some of but other than Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams is obviously the best quarterback here. But when we're talking about the other three in comparison, you look at the mechanics that JJ has, you look at the fact that he won, regardless of how good Michigan was, he won the national championship, and he can run and he can throw. There's basically nothing as a quarterback that he cannot do, which is why I really like him. The only difference between May and Daniels with him is that they just put up a lot better production, even though they were on considerably worse teams. At least Drake May was. Obviously, Daniels had great weapons, but I wouldn't mind JJ anywhere from 2 to 4, but I think with the Commanders situation and how they want to run their team, I think JJ could come in as a better system quarterback with a team that might have better weapons, but I think Daniels can do more with less. And I think with the Commanders, you have a mediocre offense. You have McLaurin coming back, Jahan Dotson. Obviously, you brought in Austin Eckler. I think that Daniels would be a very good, pair in that backfield with them to, help develop that offense. Whereas JJ, I think, might need to be in a better system in order to succeed, similar to how Brock Purdy did when he entered the league. Obviously, it's a different draft selection, but I consider them to have a similar play style.
Yeah, I think if anybody moves up, I don't know about top 3 because I really think obviously Bears and Commanders aren't going anywhere. So then you're saying the Patriots move out, and then somebody's going to move up. That'd have to be a really attractive trade package for somebody to have to give up. And if it is somebody, I think I think the Vikings. There's a lot of smoke of they really like him. They want to move up. I think if they move up anywhere, my prediction would be the Vikings swap and trade up with the Chargers. I think the Chargers are in a little bit of no man's land at pick 5 because they don't really need they need a wide receiver, but I don't know if they want to gamble on a wide receiver at 5, and they want to take an offensive lineman, but I don't know if they want to take an offensive lineman at 5. And so I think Harbaugh in his first draft, I could see the safe play being he trades out and gets extra picks, and then everybody pats him on the head saying, wow, what a great dude, rebuilding, getting assets for the Chargers, building the line. They obviously need offensive line help. They need to rebuild some areas. And so I think if anybody moves up, it's probably going to more likely be the Vikings in some sort of trade package with the Chargers to go up and take him at 5. So I think he goes at 5. I think he goes right after the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, you kind of skimmed over a point about the Patriots trading out. But if the Patriots don't trade out, I mean, they're probably going to take a quarterback, right? You'd assume if they're going to stay there, they're going to take a quarterback. Is JJ in that conversation? Obviously, we don't know what this coaching staff wants. We have no idea what this group is interested in. Is it totally out of the realm of possibility that they decide to pick up JJ at 3 in New England?
What are the odds we have the same thing that happened with Will Levis, where pre-draft, like, oh, people are liking Will Levis. They really like him. And then we were watching, we're like, oh, no shit. Nobody actually wanted him. Why the fuck were we even talking about? Like, we're so fucking stupid. Like, are we going to do the same thing with one of these quarterbacks? Like, I have a feeling that might happen. I don't know if JJ's going to be that one. Like, the price just gets too steep to move in, and then you just have a run of teams that just aren't going to take a quarterback right away. I don't know if that could happen. I think the top 3 is going to be Caleb Williams, Daniels, and then Drake May. And then the Marvin Harrison Jr. is the first wide receiver. Chargers trade out because they wanted. I think that is their number 1. They're not going to get him, and they're going to get better value later in the draft anyway, so they trade out.
And, Alan, Vegas tends to agree with what you just said regarding where JJ is going to get taken. They actually have his odds as minus 130 to be drafted in the top 5, going number 5. They don't have a team listed, but he's highly projected to go as a 5th overall pick to somebody. And I think that somebody is going to be the Vikings, as you're kind of saying. That's the dream team that we've talked about all offseason, all hype up to the draft. And I think that comes to fruition on Thursday. Regarding that quarterback that falls out, kind of like Will Levis did, I think Bo Nix is probably that guy. I think he's been kind of touted as a guy that might go at the end of the first round because teams are, they need quarterbacks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of fizzle out and go into the second round.
You think Penix is going to go in the first round?
Yes, I do. I think
To the
he's a lock to
Raiders.
go to the first round. Yep, I think he'll probably go to the Raiders at 13.
That's how that
Let me
rolls.
let me ask you guys. Let me propose a question because CT ESPN for any of you who know what that is.
Yeah.
And Antonio Brown's ESPN network. He reported that there is going to be a blockbuster deal between the Chargers and the Vikings, where the Chargers stay at 5 and select JJ McCarthy with Harbaugh and trade Justin Herbert for the same package that they were going to get basically for number 5. Now, there is probably a 0.1% chance of anything happening, but just for the sake of argument, if you had that decision, like that has to be, I think the trade that he said was pick 11, pick 23, and Christian Darrisaw for Justin Herbert was the trade. Thoughts?
For the Chargers, it gets a big contract off their books. I don't think I just can't imagine you need getting a good quarterback and a surefire quarterback is like the one thing you need in the NFL. Like, why would you voluntarily give that up? But Harbaugh, maybe he's an idiot, or maybe he thinks he knows better. Like, I don't need Herbert. I can do it with a couple old running backs and a good defense. I'll make it happen. I don't know if that's the direction he's going. I've seen that. And CTESPN, shout out AB, he was also right about leaked uniforms this week, if you were following, because he leaked all the uniforms that were coming out ahead of time. So he knows something, or the people that he has working for him, they know something that we don't. If that happens, that would be unreal. I'd be excited as a AFC fan to get Herbert out of the AFC. But
it would be kind of interesting to see. Harbaugh, obviously we know his offensive play style doesn't necessarily fit with the big cannon of Justin Herbert. It's not like he wants to run out there and run a West Coast offense. So maybe he's thinking, we can get this contract off and we can start gearing this offense toward what I want to do.
What in the freaking Deion Sanders move is he pulling coming to the NFL and then drafting JJ McCarthy right away?
Oh my gosh. And I've seen a lot of people echo the same thing you just said, Scotty, about Harbaugh and Herbert kind of just, they don't mesh or they don't match up offensive, stylistic wise. But it's almost like Harbaugh has never had a quarterback like Justin Herbert, aside from Andrew Luck in college. That was completely different. That was college, is not the pros. He's never had a pro quarterback like Justin Herbert. So you would think that if he was a true offensive guy and he can adapt to the NFL, he would find a system that fits Justin Herbert. Like Justin Herbert, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I know with quarterbacks nowadays, we give them such a short window. We give them like a 3 to 4 year span to where, like, if they haven't produced, we kick them off the face of the earth. But it's like any team right now that needs a quarterback would be jumping through the fucking window to have Justin Herbert. If I was I'm a Raiders fan, I would fucking love to have Justin Herbert on my team right now. If the Chiefs didn't have Patrick Mahomes, if they had Tyson Bagent as their starting quarterback, I'm sure they would love to have Justin Herbert.
Please, we have.
I would not like to have Justin Herbert. I'll happily take Caleb Williams.
We'll see about that.
In 3
All right,
years,
let's stop
we'll be having the same conversation about Caleb Williams. It's fine.
Let's move on from quarterbacks for a second and talk a little bit about some of the rumors that we've seen with some relatively big name wide receivers. I have seen rumors just in the last couple days that names like Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson are going to get traded during the draft. Do you think any of these, any one of them or several of them have any validity? I know, MK, you might have some thoughts on this one here.
Okay.
Just to speak real quick on the Jefferson one, I think that would be ridiculous. I mean, if they traded him, he's a generational receiver. I can't see any package that would be worth him, trading him. There isn't anything in my eyes that is worth trading him. If you trade him for a quarterback, I don't think they get that much better. I think he's that good. The other two guys, I do think there's a lot of potential. I mean, we obviously talked about Ayuk on the last podcast and, how they don't have the money for him and how maybe Debo's the one that needs to go. But, Ayuk is the one that's owed the money. I think Ayuk is a prime candidate, is the highest candidate to get traded out of all these players. I think the Bills could be a prime candidate for him. I've seen stuff with the Steelers as a prime candidate for him. The Jaguars, I think, are a really sleeper name to make a big move at receiver. You know, they do have Christian Kirk and they have Gabe Davis, but in my eyes, I can't see the Jags sitting still with the current receivers they have. You know, obviously, I think we're going to talk about hot takes later, but one of my hot takes is, you know, the Jags go out and grab their receiver. And I think that with the 49ers being in the NFC, all these AFC teams that I just named could be a potential suitor for Brandon Ayuk as opposed to a suitor for T. Higgins.
Yeah, I'll just comment really quickly on Ayuk. I know we'll talk about the other two as well, but kind of going off of what you said, the 49ers are in a similar boat as like the Chiefs for that matter. Like, you're in a win now mode and you have to think about these assets of like, did we get the most out of it? And then where do I get more value? And I think you could argue with Ayuk, the 49ers got a lot out of him for what they got, you know, for what they paid for, which was very little. And I think now what you do is you look at some of these teams that want him and see what you can get in a trade or in a draft replacement, and then you literally draft his replacement right away. Like, that should be the plan if you're the 49ers. Move on, don't overpay him market value, give him to a team that's desperate for talent, let him have the talent, and then you draft a replacement and keep it humming if you're the 49ers. I think the worst thing you can do right now is pay Ayuk. Like, I think as NFL fans and people that like observe the NFL, like, you're so quick to guard all your assets. You're like, I don't want to lose anybody. I don't want to lose anybody. Like, everybody keeps it the same. And it's like, that's not how you continue and have sustained success in the NFL is keep paying guys. That just doesn't pan out over time. You have to look at them as assets. And then once they've run their course, you need to replace them.
And that's exactly what the Chiefs have done over the past 4 or 5 years. You know, they had a guy like Tyreek Hill, who's the best wide receiver in the NFL, and they let him go after a couple years because they don't want to pay for him. And look what they've done. You know, they've won 2 Super Bowls without him now.
Yeah, I just have a hard time thinking, because obviously the Chiefs are a key example, but the Chiefs, first of all, have maybe the best quarterback in the history of football, and second of all, they were able to completely restructure and grow their defense. Because we talk about, oh, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. Obviously, we saw their offense completely change, and then their defense really stepped up. But the defense was a work in the making for a few years. We remember the year before this year where the defense was terrible because everybody was young, and we had just a bunch of rookies and a bunch of sophomores out there trying to make do. And eventually they grew into the defense that they are now, but they weren't like that. And that was a plan that was in place well before Tyreek Hill. So the question is, for San Francisco, do they have a plan like that in place? Because I don't think drafting where they're drafting at, I just don't see them being able to confidently pick a wide receiver out that will match Brandon Ayuk's production. So I think if they end up losing Brandon Ayuk, at least for this year, it's going to be a net negative for them. So the question is, okay, we want to win right now. I say, fuck the future. I don't care about next year or the year after that. I want to win right now. So let's get the playmakers that we have back in the door and let's make a run for it at this time.
Yeah. 2 schools of thought.
No, go ahead, Alan. I want to hear what you have to say first.
I was just going to say that's 2 schools of thought. That's like the Rams win now, and then you have fallout the next year of like, oh, we're white knuckling it, just trying to win games. So I think it's 2 schools of thought. I think depends on, honestly, that's the business decision. Like, and I think they can draft a replacement. As great as Ayuk is, his replacement's in the draft without question. You can replace his productivity, especially with the weapons that they have in San Francisco. They don't need that rookie to come in and be like, you need to take all the attention away and we can't make this happen. Shanahan knows what he's doing, and I think his replacement is in the draft if the 49ers are smart.
I was going to say the same thing regarding Shanahan.
Too, yeah.
Like, Shanahan is one of the best-minded offensive coaches in the NFL, and you can put anybody in that offense, and he's going to find a way to get that guy the ball in space, and he's just going to let him work in space because that's what wide receivers in the Shanahan offense do.
Well, that brings up another question, though.
Hold on.
Oh,
let's get MK has tried to talk twice now, and we have been dickbags and just steamrolled this beautiful man with a Nittany Lion flag. Let's let him go.
All I was gonna say is that I just had to disagree with Scotty real quick, and to agree with you guys, because when you look at the 49ers and how they're built, I just don't consider Ayuk to be a focal piece of this team. When you name the 5 most important players, I don't think Ayuk is one of those players. I think you're talking about Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, and Fred Warner. And then you're also talking about guys like Kittle and Debo being up there with him too. So I think that the 49ers, everyone knows that as long as they don't get like crazy injured, they're probably going to win 12 to 13 games. So by the end of the season, their rookie is going to be developed enough where they can help make a run in the playoffs, and they're going to be paying whoever that is about $1 million a year. Obviously, there is risk to that player not turning out, but I do think there is so much talent in this, this draft with the receivers that this is the draft to do it. Because if you go the route of re-signing Ayuk, I'd say most likely next year, that means Debo's gone. I'd say Debo has one more year and then he's gone out of the team, and then you're looking to replace him the year after. And you can't confirm that the receiver class next year is going to be anything like the one that there is this year.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question with that is we're talking about Ayuk, but, Debo's 28, George Kittle is 30, Christian McCaffrey's not as young as he once was. So you got a lot of weapons on this team that you're going to start needing to make some moves on at some point here in the near future. So should Ayuk be the focal point of trying to move him right now when you have someone like Debo with his play style? I mean, would anyone be surprised? Crossing our fingers this doesn't happen. We don't root for injuries, but would anyone be surprised if he sustains some serious injuries? And do you want to have to rely on a rookie wide receiver when you're in your window right now with a rookie or with a quarterback on a rookie contract that you're basically paying no money? To me, it's like, let's capitalize. Let's get the guys we know are good in the door, and let's win right now before Debo's wheels fall off and we have to make decisions with Ayuk and make decisions with Kittle. Like, let's win right now. Let's stop dicking around. But two schools of thought. I respect both opinions. We are all geniuses here in this room. Let's move on to the next one here. Yeti, I think you've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes, mentioning that just given the makeup of this draft, there's a high likelihood that more quarterbacks are taken in the first round than what people expect. Rumors I'm seeing are 6 quarterbacks, including Penix and including Nix, are going to be drafted in the first round. You think there's any validity to that?
Yeah, I think my hot take for the NFL draft is that there's going to be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. We have our obvious guys, the top 3, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, locks. JJ McCarthy, I think he's a lock. Michael Penix and Nix are the 2 guys that people are going back and forth on a lot, saying, oh, I don't know. But there's a lot of smoke with Penix going in the first round, whether that's to the Broncos, whether that's to the Raiders. I could even see Penix going to Seattle. Seattle's kind of a sneaky team that needs a quarterback. And it's worth noting, too, that Seattle's coach, their offensive coordinator, came from the University of Washington, where Michael Penix also played. So, I mean, there's some wiggle room there. There's some chemistry there already with Michael Penix. But then I think Bo Nix, he's a questionable guy. He's like, I don't know. I personally don't think he is a first-round quarterback, so I just want to start off by saying that. But I think just based off of need and teams trying to capitalize on that 5th-year option that you get in the first round, I do think Bo Nix will go in the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to the Broncos or to the Rams.
Well, the Rams is, I guess, does anyone want to talk about that real quick before I move on to the Rams? We can segue nicely into it because I actually haven't seen much talk about this until I started looking up some of these rumors and digging in, getting ready for draft day. And the Rams, people are talking about how they're going to use their first-round pick, which, by the way, this is the first-round pick that they've had since 2016. And they're going to use it to draft a replacement for their aging quarterback. Do you think there's any validity to that? Do you think they're going to go get one of these bottom tier quarterbacks, number 5, number 6 on the quarterback list going into the draft on day 1?
Yeah, I actually do. I've recently been on the train of the Rams could be a team. I don't think that a team like the Raiders is going to take, Michael Penix or Bo Nix. I don't think that any of those other teams and like the teens are going to take him. But the Rams, you got to look at the way that their roster is constructed right now. Aaron Donald, retired. Cooper Kupp, he's 30 years old, definitely towards the end of his career. I think that him and Stafford are going to be retiring together, personally. I think they both got, 2 good years left in both of them if they can stay healthy, and that's a big if. And then that's where, you get a guy like Michael Penix this year. Because if you get Michael Penix, he's very old coming out of college. He has a lot of injury history, but you can sit him for about 2 years, maybe have him learn behind Stafford, who, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time. And I'm happy that he was able to win a Super Bowl and prove to people that he was good outside of Detroit.
Is he a Hall of Famer? That's the real question.
See, that's where I would
Yes.
say yes. That's what I would say
Yes.
yes. But like I was saying, Michael Penix, I think you add him to this offense, and hopefully by that time, the Rams, offense, obviously, and just team in general could look very different in 3 years. But having a guy who's a project quarterback, similar to how the Packers went with Jordan Love, obviously it's the Packers and they've done that before. But I think that, taking a page out of their book, given the situation that the Rams are in, I don't think any positional player that the Rams take at whatever pick they are this year is going to make an impact as much as a guy like Penix could make in the future.
I agree with you 100%, MK. And I think a lot of the reason why I think the Rams would be wise to take a quarterback in the first round is because they have nailed all of their late round picks lately. You look at Puka, he was drafted in the 5th round last year. Some of their defensive guys that started last year for them came in the later picks that they had last year. They've just been able to do the most with the late round picks. And if they were to take a quarterback in the first round this year, they get that extra year. Like MK was saying, I think it'd be beneficial for whoever that rookie quarterback is to have that, to be able to sit behind Stafford for 2 years, but then you take him in the first round and you get that extra 5th year. So it's like a cherry on top by taking him in the first round.
Alan, you got any thoughts on those guys?
I do. I have actually some comments and questions of where we think this is actually going to go, because quarterbacks being taken in the first round, a lot of them, it's a feast or famine lately with a lot of quarterbacks, especially first round ones. So for a team like the Rams, I think if they're going to do it, I think it's just like what Yeti said, like find somebody late that you can slot in, because it's either going to be, and these are just recent first round quarterback drafts, and there's like such a juxtaposition to like their upside, because 2020 you had Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love go all in one in the first round. 2018 you had Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson go in the first round. And then back in 2012 you have Luck, Griffin, Tannehill, Brandon Weeden. So I think outside of a couple guys, it's going to be, you're more likely to have a bust. And I was reading an article earlier this week that said, like, based on first round quarterbacks, there's about a 65 to 70% chance that your first round quarterback is a bust. And if you're a team like the Rams or any of these middle teams, especially like the Seahawks, like, just be careful. Like, there's no way in hell Bo Nix should be on anybody's radar anywhere early at all. There's so much value from other positions. And when you're looking at building teams in terms of assets, it is easy to point and say, let's just solve it by drafting the guy that we need to replace and moving on. But drafting for value often gets you value down the road, where now that asset has grown and you can leverage it in different ways. And thinking of the draft, I know more NFL teams tend to think that way or want to think that way. So it's just who's going to panic first, because I think outside of those top 3 that Yeti mentioned that are for sure fire locks, as much as there's upside on all the other ones, like, they're more likely to be a bust. Like, I think that's where you're in the 70% range of like, this guy's probably not going to work out. And now you just wasted a first round pick when you could have had checks all the top 10 wide receivers that are out there that could have actually given you more upside later on. Maybe you attract a free agent quarterback down the road, but I get it's a win now thing. But in terms of assets, like, outside of that top 3, I would just be very leery. And then even JJ McCarthy, like, it's somebody's going to trade up and get him. I know it's going to happen, but it's just such a feast or famine type thing with those quarterbacks, because outside of a couple, you're more likely to peter off.
That was a very impressive politician answer, but do you think the Rams are going to take a quarterback?
In this draft?
Yes, in the first round.
Oh, no. Nope, they will not.
I like it. Okay.
I was going to say one more thing, just, regarding what Alan said, because I also do agree, with some teams. Obviously it goes back and forth with, what do? Do you build a team first or do you build a quarterback first? And I think, Denver is looking like it's going to go with the strategy of, let's get our guy, and as long as he works out, everything else will fall into place. that does work sometimes, and I think the Texans are a good example of it. Last year, I'd say their roster wasn't that great. They had a few pieces here and there, but nobody really that notable at that time. Nico Collins and Tank Dell weren't that high, highly ranked. They weren't anything higher than wide receiver 30 or 35 on most people's, overall draft boards. And then obviously their defense wasn't supposed to be anything crazy. I think that, doing that type of situation is very risky, but the good teams can make it work. And I think that, DeMeco Ryans has proven that he's a great coach for Houston. I think Sean McVay is a terrific coach, and I think most people know that. And I think that it's up to him and whether or not he's willing to stay around, because there was rumors, a couple of years ago or right after the Super Bowl, that he was thinking about retiring. So now with Donald being gone, and then, with Stafford and Kupp being gone, is McVay going to stick around for the next cycle of players, or is he gone, when his guys are gone? Because I think that could also impact this pick a lot, in the fact that I think if they do take a quarterback, I think it means that Sean McVay could be in it for the long run, and he might want to help develop that quarterback. And having that quarterback develop under a good coach like that, similar to like how Love did under Matt LaFleur, I think that could work out very well, as opposed to, a team like the Commanders or like the Bears, whose franchise, has statistically not been very good at drafting quarterbacks in the past.
That's all going to change.
And I think there's a couple good late round quarterbacks too, that if somebody like the Rams were willing to sit on somebody with some upside that maybe does need a little work, like a Joe Milton from Tennessee or a Sam Hartman from Notre Dame, who transferred from Wake Forest but was super productive. But Notre Dame playing the schedule they are, I think it kind of diminished his draft stock. And that's somebody you can get, fourth, fifth round, where you're still building the frontline assets, but then you have a quarterback you can work with like minimal risk, because you're not leveraging first round talent grades on taking a shot in the dark. And I think that's probably the route they'll go, more than taking the first round, but we'll see how it plays out. And I can't wait for this to be clipped and then me proven wrong. So here we go.
I like the Sam Hartman take, because my theory is any team that wants to just draft a late quarterback, take a shot in the dark, go with Sam Hartman, because that guy is the most beautiful man on earth, and he will sell you a shitload of jerseys. So it's like, okay, he may or may not work out, but our jersey sales are going to skyrocket. That's a big baller business move right there.
Bro, when I was watching the combine, all I could see was that black, luscious hair just flowing from his head, and I was like, "Who is that guy?" And they're like, Sam Hartman. Like, I want that guy. I want that guy on my fantasy squad.
Could you imagine what fantasy? Could you imagine Sam and Sean McVay in the same room, just like staring at each other?
You think there'd be a power struggle?
No, I think at some point they just start making out. Like, that's probably where it defaults to. They're just like, well, fuck it.
The world wants this to happen. We're just going to do it.
What did this podcast turned into? Like, what are we doing here?
This is what it's been from the beginning.
45 minutes in, this turns into Yeti's fantasy hour. So we're dovetailing right in.
All right, let's move on to our NFL draft hot takes. Each one of us has an idea, something that may or may not be popular, that may or may not happen. But we're going to go through all of these scenarios and maybe argue, maybe agree. We'll kind of see how it goes. And I think we're going to start with you, Kahan MK. I think we're going to start with you and get your hot take first, and we will pick it apart piece by piece. So go for it. The floor is yours.
Sounds good. So, I came in with two, and, I kind of mentioned the first one with Ladd McConkey earlier and talked a little bit about that in the last episode. So I'm not going to talk about him as much, at least until he gets drafted and I can say how much I love him as a prospect. But my hot take is that somebody is going a team. I don't know who it's going to be. I think it could be the Jaguars. I think it could be the Colts. I think it could even be the Jets. I think one of those teams is going to jump the Bears at 9th overall and trade into 8 with Atlanta and draft Rome Odunze. I think that, all three of those teams are looking for, a top end receiver. I think, maybe the Colts are a team that, they have a few guys and they might be willing to sit at their pick. But I think with Rome and the way that people are viewing him as a prospect, I think that there's a lot of potential with him being a 3-down receiver and being, a top 10 guy that everyone's looking for. And I think at this point, it's looking like, with recent reports coming out today, that the Bears are not looking to get a defensive end in the draft because they don't really like the talent out there. with guys like Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Latu. So I think right now Rome Odunze is going to go 9th overall to the Bears, but I think somebody's going to try to come in and jump him because of the difference between him and Brian Thomas in some of their eyes, and might only have to give up a day 2 pick for it. So I think one of those teams will jump in, take him, and that's where the draft could get interesting, because then it's do the Bears trade down at that point? Do they take the defensive end? Or from what I've been hearing a lot, I think we also really like Brock Bowers. So that's where the draft starts to get very, very interesting.
What's your ideal scenario there, KN?
With the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I'm actually not the biggest Rome fan. I don't typically like taking receivers with his build and the type of plays that he scored big on in college. I'm a much bigger Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison fan, obviously. I'm also a bigger Brian Thomas fan. I actually prefer him over Rome in this situation. However, if the Bears do decide to take Rome, I will stand behind it because I do trust Ryan Poles and some of the picks that he's made in the past 2 years. So whatever he decides, to be honest, I think all Bears fans are going to be fine with at this point. He's proven himself enough to the franchise where, we have to put our trust into him and into Caleb Williams to help develop him. And with, I don't mind the receiver pick because with, DJ Moore, who had a terrific season last year, and with Keenan Allen, that's our entire room. We don't have a third guy. And with Keenan Allen guaranteed to miss at least 4 games a year, we need somebody else to come in and be able to have production. And I originally was like, let's take somebody in day 2, but it doesn't seem like we have much interest in that. I think we want to get our guy, and maybe Keenan Allen leaves after a year or 2. But I do like the mentorship program that they'll be placed under and, filling up that receiver room for Caleb, who at the end of the day is going to be the most important player in Chicago history.
Chicago history. Capping it off with another hot take. I like it.
Jesus.
All right. You guys have any criticism to lob at KN, or should we move on here to Allen's hot take, which I'm looking forward to greatly?
No, I like this. I like also for our own teams, what do we wish our teams would do? I like this kind of double. So it was a little bit of, so MK kind of hedged some bets. If somebody leaps up and takes a wide receiver that the Bears wanted, he can say he called it. So it's nice. I appreciate that. It's good hedging, the emotional hedge right there, so we can clip it. Also, hot take saying he doesn't like Rome. Tough look for the Italians. So there's just a lot to unpack if you're listening to his takes. Overall, I think it makes sense. I would like to see a young wide receiver be paired up with Caleb. And Keenan Allen, I don't think he intends to miss 4 games. I think when you've played for so long, you get at least like 4 weeks of PTO. And so I think he just burns it. I could check the bylaws for the NFL, but that's all I have on his. Yeti, do you have anything for MK?
The only thing that I would see is I know that the Jets and the Bears have both been rumored to take like a tight end or a wide receiver at the 9, and I think the 10th spot for the Jets. But I look at their offensive lines and I have question marks, especially with a guy like Caleb Williams coming in and Aaron Rodgers coming back. In my mind, they should really be looking to shore up their offensive line more than anything. And I understand. I understand both teams need offensive playmakers, but you could say that the Bears could maybe go get somebody later on in the second round and get a wide receiver then if they really wanted to, because they have 2 elite wide receivers on their team right now. And I think Kmet is a very good tight end as it stands.
No, I agree with you. To be honest, like I said, like my preference would be to trade down in this situation. Like I would love to go down to a pick 13 or something like that and get a tackle like, Olu Fashanu or Talise Fitanu or Troy Fitanu and Talise Fuaga. Sorry, they all have like very similar names, but
I'm pretty sure you just made all of that up. I don't even think those are actual human beings.
It was just Italian slurs. He's just going after the Italians.
I would enjoy taking a tackle. I think it just does come down to my lack of confidence in Braxton Jones, who is going to go into his 3rd year. He did have a good rookie year and had, a solid second year for some parts of it. So I do understand why they are okay with keeping him. In my eyes, none of the tackles are good enough to go at 9th overall other than Joe Alt. So if he's gone, I wouldn't want any of them at 9th overall. But if we do trade down, I think tackle becomes our play. And then whatever we receive in return for that trade down is where we go and get our playmaker.
All right, let's move on to Alan's hot take. This is something I've been looking forward to the entire episode. So please give me the music to my ears that I'm looking for.
Well, much like my wife experiences, I'll probably let you down. But my hot take is the Chargers will fuck this up royally. I think largely this is going to be on Harbaugh. I think his ego is uber inflated coming off a national title win at Michigan. I think he's going to try to flex his muscle with his team. And you kind of already seen some of it where got rid of some wide receivers, brought in a couple running backs from his brother's team, trying to like put his stamp on what this team's going to be. And I think he's going to fuck this up. And MK saying with Antonio Brown's CT ESPN report of like them getting rid of Herbert would be the ultimate cherry on top. Like trading out of this pick, not getting a top wide receiver to pair with Herbert and getting rid of Herbert would be like my ideal dream scenario for how I see this playing out for Harbaugh. So that's my hot take. They're just going to royally screw this up in all different directions this draft. And I think it's all just because Harbaugh is going to so desperately want to put his fingerprints on this team and kind of regain his 49ers prowess that he had.
Yeti, division opponent, you got anything to say?
I would love to see it. Nothing more would make me happier I can't talk, man. It's Tuesday. I'm losing my words. I'm losing my goddamn mind. But I would be very happy to see the Chargers fumble this because they're sitting in a very good position where they could trade out of that 5 spot and get a lot of capital, or they could just be total dipshits. And I'm rooting for the latter here.
What are the odds that they just draft a wide receiver? They just say, we don't have any wide receivers. Let's get a wide receiver. Is that the bet, like the most likely scenario?
No, they're probably going to draft Joe Alt if they do anything. If they actually draft, they're going to draft Joe Alt. They're going to take the lineman. 100%.
Be a good addition.
That's a Harbaugh take. That's a Harbaugh move through and through. Get two.
It doesn't make it. No, no, it's not. It's not a Harbaugh move. They're set at left tackle. You got Rashawn Slater out there. You got Rashawn Slater out there. There's no need for a tackle. You need a playmaker for Justin Herbert. If you're staying in that spot, I think they should trade down. You should get a ton of capital for it. But if you're staying in that spot, I don't know how Malik Neighbors is not the pick there.
So are we all in the general consensus that they are like the most likely scenario is that they trade down?
Yes.
They should. Yes.
Okay. It's still a little ambiguous. I like it. All right, Yeti, your hot take. Bring it to us.
So my original hot take, I said earlier that Bo Nix will be drafted in the first round. But I did come prepared with the backup. So the current NFL draft record for wide receivers taken in the first round was set in 2004 with 7 wide receivers going in the first round. I don't think that record is going to get broken this year. And in fact, I think more offensive tackles are going to be taken in the first round than wide receivers are. So that's my hot take.
In this wide receiver class, you think there are going to be more tackles taken than wide receivers?
Yes, I do. And I think if you look at the wide receiver list prospects, I think there is a clear top 3, like we talk about with the quarterbacks, with Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, and O'Dunes. And then the next tier, there's so many question marks that I could see a lot of these guys slip into the second round. You look at a guy like Troy Franklin, who's in a lot of guys' top 10s. Is he a gadget type of guy? I don't know. Brian Thomas Jr., is he just a vertical threat, like a Jalen Hyatt type of guy? I don't know. Adonai Mitchell, same question marks. Like, is he a George Pickens out there? And the questions go on. And I think Ladd McConkey is he's a very hot name that I've seen floated around because he had a hot Senior Bowl, and a lot of people are chasing the Puka Nacua type of storyline where Puka had a sexy Senior Bowl, tested well at the combine, and then like fell, and people are kind of chasing that. But I just have a lot of question marks with this next tier of wide receivers after the top 3. So I think some of these guys are going to fall a lot later than we think.
KN Smirkin, what do you got?
I was going to say, I actually don't think that I do think the second part of your take was very hot, but I don't think that that a lot of tackles going over at least receivers is a crazy take. I actually did a mock today, and there's a ton of tackle talent in this draft. A lot of teams always have a need for a tackle just because of constant injuries and constant, players busting. But I think with the receivers, There's a lot. I agree. There's a lot of validity between them, but there is some really big names that could also go very high. You have a team like the Steelers picking at pick 20. They lost Deontay Johnson. They could be, there for a guy like Brian Thomas if he falls, which I don't expect him to fall past, 17 or 18. You look at Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.21. Adonai Mitchell, who, in my opinion, is my favorite person to comp right now because I think he is literally T. Higgins Jr. There's so many great players in this draft that I'm pretty sure that this receiver. I'm not saying this receiver, the first round is gonna get broken, but I've been seeing some stuff about, like you said, Troy Franklin and Jalen Polk out of Washington. There could be a good 7 to 8 receivers that do get drafted in this first round. And there also could be, a couple that got drafted at the beginning, the first couple picks of the second round. But I think when you're looking at the top 40 of the draft, it's going to be fun to rank these guys throughout the offseason because these rookie drafts for fantasy are going to be very fun because there is going to be a lot of fantasy relevant guys outside of the running back position this year in the draft.
I think something that's important to mention too is like with a lot of the teams that do need quarter or wide receivers later in the draft, like the Steelers, they are highly rumored for somebody like Ayuk. And we could see that be the case with a team like the Bills as well, where they sneak up and they trade for somebody with their first round pick. So maybe they don't take a rookie wide receiver in the first round like a lot of people are projecting. So I think there's there's a lot of different factors in play. And I do agree with you, Kahan, that there are a lot of talented wide receivers, but I have a lot of question marks with that next year. And so I think they're going to fall into the second round, which is more than fine.
Yeah, but okay, let me ask you a question. If a team trades Ayuk, let's say the Niners trade Ayuk, are they not taking a receiver with that pick? And same with the Bengals. If the Bengals trade Higgins, there's no way they don't take a receiver.
It all depends on what how they feel. I feel like they could wait until the second round if they think they like somebody in the second round, like a Javon Baker might be sitting there waiting for them. I don't know, Keon Coleman or Ricky Pearsall, like some of these guys that are getting touted in the second round. A lot of people are saying, oh, they could be like they comp to like a Ladd McConkey. Like, why is Ladd McConkey going at the end of the first round? They're like the same talent wise. So
I was sitting watching a draft and seeing it play out where the Chiefs took like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and could have had T. Higgins. I'm ready to get my heart broken that Adonai Mitchell is going to be there at the end of the first round, and I'm going to be like so excited for them to draft him, and then they just fuck it up again. So thank you, MK, for putting that in my brain. I like the hot take. These are hot takes. They're supposed to be a little spice, right? They're supposed to be a little spicy. I don't mind it at all. The wide receiver class, I do feel like there's going to be there's so many wide receiver hungry teams out there. I think it's just everybody's going to want it. Everybody needs to grab it now because the market's also getting ready to reset. That's why you saw some wide receivers being re-signed right now. You saw Devonta Smith with the Eagles get re-signed right now because it's going to reset next offseason. And these teams aren't going to want to pay that anymore. And especially trading for somebody like Ayuk, that means you're going to be right in the same place next year where you're going to either have to pay for it or draft it. And I think that's probably more because of where the wide receiver market is heading, that the wide receivers, a shit ton of them go in the first round. And they probably shouldn't if you're looking at quote unquote the grades of them all, but they probably just will because people are it's going to be kind of like a panic thing. They're like, I got to get my wide receiver.
That is an interesting point because I think what Yeti's saying makes a lot of sense where, okay, you're looking at these talent guys and you're like, okay, they look really great, but obviously a lot of question marks. We don't know how they're going to transition to the NFL, whereas, one of the easiest positions to transition to the NFL is offensive line. These guys are huge. They're very strong. They're only going to get stronger and more practiced, and everybody needs an offensive line. So I agree with you, Yeti, that I think you're going to see a lot of that where they say, well, got 2 or 3 receivers that we'd be interested in, but we have this offensive tackle that we really want and we really need, so we're going to go ahead and just take him and play it safe. But with the wide receiver market resetting, that is interesting. And obviously, we've talked about many times, the entire focus of the NFL is transitioning to a pass-heavy sort of game. And maybe people are trying to capitalize on this potentially historic wide receiver class coming into 2024. So 2 things to keep your eyes out for in the first round. I'm going to round this off with with my last hot take here, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. this is something that I've said several times. And now I've got Kahan here in front of me to tell me I'm wrong. So that's going to be exciting. But I think when we look back at this draft at the end of 2024, we are going to look back and see whichever quarterback that the Vikings took is going to be touted as the number one quarterback in this draft. And there are a couple different guys that are on that, list of possibilities, but I just think the situation in Minnesota is the best situation for a rookie quarterback. Obviously, the Bears are in a good situation too. The difference is Kevin O'Connell. Both teams have weapons. The Vikings have Kevin O'Connell. And I think this is a prime situation for a rookie quarterback to walk into with a coach who can coach them up and develop them in a proper way. Oh, and by the way, you've got Justin Jefferson. And so I just think we're going to look back and see the production from whichever quarterback ends up there and say, we really should have been higher on that guy at this draft spot.
Yeah, I don't mind the take because I agree. It's obviously a really good situation. The question is, what are they going to have to give up? Because they do have to give up Christian Darrisaw, which is a player that has been floated around in those trades. Obviously, with the Broncos, their player they have to give up would be Pat Surtain. Giving up Darrisaw would be their left tackle. I understand why the Vikings should make a trade because if you look at the NFC North, all other three teams I think will make the playoffs this year. But I don't think that any of these other quarterbacks compare to Caleb Williams. That's just it for me. And you can say it's a biased fan take, but it's just funny to me because it hasn't really set in that like we're getting Caleb because all offseason everybody has been giving the semantics of, oh, he paints his nails and he cried after he lost the game and he got injured or whatever. And
he's subtweeting
every single main negative about him is genuinely unrelated to his play. And then recently it came out that like his home screen is like the picture of the text that he wrote about like Tom Brady about chasing Brady and like getting 8 rings. So with all that being said, the next time I'm on this show, Caleb Williams will be a Bear and a dynasty will have begun. A competition between him and Patrick Mahomes.
Wow, I like how you're just completely throwing the idea of under promising and overperforming right out the fucking window, and you're just going straight to Tom Brady, eight Super Bowls. I don't know. I think Caleb Williams is good. I mean, you can pick certain things out of his game where you say, well, they got to coach that out of him. But ultimately, you're right. I mean, when you look at the quarterback talent in this draft, I think Caleb Williams is at the top and should be at the top. So I think there's a good chance he's very successful. And the good news is, as much as we're talking about, 8 rings and all this stuff, I don't know about all that, but the expectations for the Bears in terms of their franchise history is relatively low, and they can make the playoffs with 10 wins. And so it's like, okay, they were pretty close to it last year. There's no reason to think this team's not going to be better than what they were last year. So I think all he has to do is not fuck it up, and people are going to consider it a success, which is a pretty good spot for him to be in.
Yeah, no, I love how I turned your hot take into a Bears debate. I love it.
That's why we brought you on, Kahan. All right. Any other thoughts on this hot take, gentlemen?
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. I like it. All right. All of you Brainiacs out there, thank you very much for tuning in. I apologize. This is kind of the B team without Slapdog here, but hopefully we did you right and you enjoyed the show. Obviously, go follow us on all the social media, subscribe, all that good stuff. As Slapdog always says, it means a lot to a small podcast like us. We're just dudes talking ball, trying to have a good time, and we'd love for it if you join us. So go over to YouTube, go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, /X, all that stuff. Hit that follow button and start interacting with the content because we'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions and takes. And with all that said, gentlemen, we
are
out.